Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Directors and Donuts.
This feels a little overkill.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying.
It's the only way we know how to do it, and we're proud of that.
Love it.
But hey, my name is Justin. I'm the technical director here at Gear 7, and this is my friend Stephen Lester.
Hey guys, how are you?
Stephen is a director, a editor,
Yep.
a Disney World enthusiast.
I do go to Disney World a lot, and I know that may bring my cool level down quite a bit, but I'm a big fan of Disney. I've been in the industry 15 or 16 years, which makes me feel old. Justin
Same.
was saying,
Same.
we were talking about this. I feel like the old man. I started in the faith-based industry. I worked at a church for 9 or 10 years in Charlotte, and then became kind of a multicam director. We talked about it a little bit, but there's two kind of areas I kind of focus in, and it's all music related, which I'm sorry if you don't like music. That's kind of what I do, and I apologize, but it's multicam. So biggest show we've ever done was 26 cameras calling in live, in a big arena, and then doing oneers. I love a good reveal and building out systematic flows and capturing really great moments. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've got two
Awesome.
kids.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, let's flip through some slides and find that. I think that oneer's up first.
Hey.
It's a good one. Hey, Stephen.
We talked about who I am. Okay, so this is a oneer we did. We don't have to have the volume on this list, but
Yeah.
Me and Justin talked about a little bit about this as on the fact of I did a lot of faith-based stuff. I got my I cut my teeth in the faith space, and so this is a oneer that we did in a warehouse that was actually 10 oneers that we streamed back to back to back. And then we talked a little bit about this as, I keep saying that, but it's going to be my thing. We kind of planned this as to go from one take to another take to another take. And yeah, these are kind of what I love, revealing certain things and stuff. So
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things, and I was you can have jokes about oneers and be like, oh well, you just say action and then it all happens, and you're like, oh, look how good I am. It's all done now. But the amount of prep and preparation that goes into it, that's what's going to make it incredible. That it's not just hey, let me get a great Steadicam up and just be go nuts, but actually having it blocked off and saying here's where I want this moment, here's where I want this moment, here's where I want this moment.
Yeah.
And this, we're talking about reveals, this reveal right here, where the harmonies come in, and it's just kind of, you can feel him just kind of waiting for that moment, waiting for that, and kind of pacing this out, that it's more of a showcase and blocking than it is anything else. Because that coming right there, right as she comes in, so good.
Thanks, bro. I think we were talking about this yesterday, but if you don't know, Justin calls you and talks you through everything you're going to talk about, which I guess is a good thing and a bad thing, because you reference that conversation all the time. But I feel like directing oneers and multicam, and honestly in all space, you have, I think there's a misconception that you show up and you're the big shot and you're the boss and you're okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. And when you call action, you're actually the last person that has the control. So if the Steadicam operator wants to do something else, he's going to do it. And if you haven't built the relational equity to follow your vision, stuff will go down. Especially in live scenarios, and even oneers, you kind of brace and make sure that the team knows exactly what you're doing. But if you haven't built the relational equity as a director to kind of make the set feel awesome, with the talent, with the camera operators, I think you don't create anything special, you don't create anything good, you just kind of turn a camera on, which to me is more important than like the storytelling and the blocking. Like if you can create a great leadership environment where people can thrive and you're not being an ass, like just being honest. Like I think that there's a lot of conversations about this, especially in our city. Like I've worked with people from LA, like everywhere, and they're great people. But I've also worked with people that are like very hard to work with, and they create great stuff and they're savants, and I get it. I feel like I'm just an average Joe trying to get everybody to like move forward in a direction. And so I work in a way that like is like, hey, I'm a 2 on the Enneagram too, so if you know Enneagram, like I care about you as a person, and so I care about the people on my set. I also make decisions, and but I think the biggest thing that you can say on set, especially when it comes to DPs, these gaffers, hey, I trust you. Like, hey, here's the vision. They ask you a question. I'm like, okay, what do you think? What's the option? Cool, trust you on that. Now, I have opinions, but I think every director has opinions. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think one thing I talked about yesterday was like you, as a director, you're making choices. Like you're helping make a decision. You're steering the ship, but you cannot and should not make every decision, do every single little thing. Because it's just gonna, you're gonna get lost in it. You're gonna get, so having that ability to step back, having that ability to focus on it in prep. And in blocking. So we're then like, what you're doing is you're setting everyone up for success, and just like pushing it off, and it goes.
Well, and I mean, even like with this one-er, like we have low-hanging fog coming in, like at this big epic part of it, and it took us 4 or 5 times to try it, and we didn't get it right the first 3 times, and we only had like 1, maybe 2 takes left with as much CO2 as we had, so like there is a limitation on what we're trying to do, budget, scope, everything. And the tendency is to get stressed there and like, okay, it's a freaking warehouse, so it's a hard space to fill. And the LD and like his assistant kind of came in and said, hey, I've got an idea, let's try this. And so, instead of like, no, let's do it the same way and just work on our timing, like you just got to trust the people that you're working with. And I would say, especially if you're a young director, working with a group of people that you can build relationships with. Like I work with John a ton, and who's a DP here, and I feel like the fact that we've worked for the last 3 years together, we've had our ups and downs, like we've created really great stuff, we've created some stuff you'll never see, but we've learned the language. I trust him, he trusts me, like all that. I think that that's a huge place as a young director, as someone that works in the industry in general. Like find the people you love working with and work with them over and over. Introduce new talent, new scope, and new vision, but I do think that there's something to be said about the common language that you can build. We don't
Absolutely.
have another video to play, so I'm just going to hit that.
Sweet.
But that kind of is that.
I love that, just the relational equity and how huge that is in this business, that it's, you're seeking ways to use some church phrases, you're seeking ways to serve others, to like be present, be connected, help other people out. That will always come back. That will always help. And that the more we build into others, the more we kind of say like, I'm going to offer my skill set and help, that pays dividends in so many ways.
Well, I mean, it comes down to like when I have to ask a favor, because everybody has those projects. We have those passion projects, the stuff that we're like, man, financially this doesn't make sense, but like this could be really cool. And when you have to pull into that jar from a relational standpoint, be like, hey, dude, can you cut your rate like $200 or $300 or
completely.
I haven't gotten to that point. I don't, or maybe one day we will, but or like, hey, I really want to try this. Do you think it works? Or kind of vibe, and they do the pre-work to kind of sell a pitch. I think is it's huge. I use this analogy with directing, and we can move on, but everybody talks about the director being the quarterback on like a football team, which I'm sorry, I'm probably the only person in the South that doesn't like root crazy on a football team. I'm sorry, guys.
You're not alone.
But I don't think the director is the quarterback on the team. I think they're a coach. Like in the sense of the coach kind of makes the plays, builds the team. The season is good or bad based off of the coaching staff, and then lets the people that are actually the actors, the musicians, the camera operators, like do their thing. And so that's kind of where my head is always when we're directing, is like, okay, how can I create a great atmosphere? What players do I need? Because I think there are players that like I know that if I want a chaotic, crazy, really cool looking handheld field in a live, I'm gonna call Seth Dunlap, who's an operator here.
Yep.
If it's this interview, like right now, and Seth's operating, I'm sorry, Seth, if you're watching, I won't put Seth on a camera here because he needs energy, he needs focus. So just knowing your team, knowing your players on that.
Yeah.
I love Seth, and he knows I love him,
Yes.
wherever you might be.
Agreed. Yeah, let's hit this next one.
This is like a once in a lifetime dream project for me, not because it looks incredible or anything like that. It's like my favorite artist, and we got the call about it last year, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't care who it is. It's John Mayer, which he's an awesome dude. He's extremely tall in person, like 6'10", or feels like that way. But this is a 6-camera shoot that we did in LA. And you talk about like planning and preparation. Like we kind of planned and blocked all the cameras where we wanted. I worked with a DP named Chase Smith who does a lot of live stuff, and he called. I have this weird thing. I love a handheld in a crowd. Like it just is my thing. Like I am realizing that as I get older that it's okay to have a thing. But we put someone with an ergo rig out in the crowd, and for the most part we clean this up and edit, but this is almost, I would say, 85 to 90% line cut. So like if you're not familiar with the multicam world, line cut is Skylar's back there switching cameras right now, and if he had camera operators, he'd be like standby 1, coming to lead, standby 2, take 2, take 5. It comes down to, we were talking about this from an edit perspective, like it's almost like editing live, which there's an adrenaline to that I'm an adrenaline junkie when it comes to this. Like I yell like in a good way. Like
yeah, you do.
I'll scream like. There's a guy named Hamish Hamilton who's like a famous multicam director that does all the Super Bowl stuff, like Beyonce, Coldplay stuff. Early on in my career, I watched a video of him directing U2 Elevation, and the dolly comes across, and it's like a 200-foot dolly, and all you hear him is saying, hell yeah, like in a very British way. And that's me. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm going to embrace that. Like, and we talk about coaching. Like, if I'm quiet, there's something wrong. Like, that's like everybody knows I'm trying to figure it out. But like, I will yell, standby 2, taking 2, hey, energy, and I'll start clapping. Like, it's just, I feel a little bit like I have Tourette's at that moment, like just because I'm saying random words on that front. But this project is like a once in a lifetime project that, I mean, who doesn't love John Mayer? But yeah, it was for Pandora, and it was great.
Nice. Yeah, I'd say like my 2 cents, having done live directing and multicam directing, and having TD'd for you, like there's an adrenaline to it that is like nothing else. And there's so much of that world and learning that and doing that plays into, I feel like I'm a better DP because I know from that, I know pacing, I know rhythm, I know coverage that I need, like
Yeah.
so many of those things translate into single camera narrative stuff.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this too. Like, I direct music, Warner's. I also own a post house here in town called the Edit House. We started this year, but we do a lot of posts on commercials and corporate stuff, and story and unscripted stuff. And I think the musicality that you can learn from the music side kind of brings pacing and flow to your edits. And as a director, like I played an instrument in high school and college, and I thought I was great. Like I really did. I thought I was an awesome guitar player and vocalist. And then my wife one day, my girlfriend, and at the time, I was singing something in John Mayer's in the car, and she was like, "Can you just stop?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Dude, you are horribly out of pitch. Like, you sound awful." And I was like, "Okay, cool. That kills that dream." But I think me understanding the musicality of what, not just this, but like Warner's, has helped me a lot as a director. It doesn't mean that you have to love music or anything. I think there's different shapes and feels for everything, but it has kind of helped me learn pacing. Like,
yeah.
And we talk about multicam and narrative. Like, multicam, you would think it's just all about like, capturing and coverage, but like the goal here in this piece is to get you as the audience member watching it to feel like you're in the room. So the reason why I put a crowd shot in the crowd, Shooting Dirty, is as if you're in the pit, like looking at John, and you know that his guitar is a character, so like you kind of play into that, the movement, the pacing, the flow, like you want to see that like vibe out as he's playing Belief. But like it still has the narrative structure. Like it's all about ebb and flow, pacing, relieving that tension with your shots, like creating that energy as you push into a camera or guitar as he's like shredding on the guitar. Like I think people will think that music and multicam is like, coverage and you're not worried about story, but I think you're as worried as anybody else. Now, yes, do you have the complications of like actually verbally telling a story? No, but I still think the concepts kind of align on that front.
Yeah. And it definitely sets apart, like when you go from like, I'm just covering this thing to show people somewhere else what's happening, to I'm actually going to like create a moment, create things, draw things out of this place and draw in an audience in a different way. Yeah. But I definitely want to hit on editing before we wrap up. So tell me about the Edit House and how that came about and how it's going.
Yeah, I mean, I started at Post House this year, and I mean, you would think I would encourage you as a director, if you have an editor, use them, but I think editing your own stuff is like the best way to learn as a DP, as a camera operator, as a director for a season, or hiring an editor, letting them edit, and then you go do your director's cut, because I think you'll realize, how bad you are at times, just being candid. Like, especially, I watch like the John Mayer stuff. I had to put that stuff together last night, and I watch, and even here again, we were talking about this too. Like, you watching your stuff with a critical eye and trying to retell it, like, makes you a better filmmaker. Like, it just does. Like, it's just like a football player watching game film. Like, you acknowledge, like, that Steadicam shot was a little bit shaky. Early on in my career, I wouldn't have noticed that, but now that like I've got reps with Warner's, I'm like, and I'm learning from people. Like, I've gotten to see some amazing directors this year work, and I'm like, okay, the way they approach that, like, I'm gonna steal and like learn from. But I started the Edit House because everybody said that Nashville was a post-desert, and it kind of is. Like, and I love the storytelling involved as a director, and editing, so it kind of lined up. But no,
that's great. I definitely think that there are definitely some great editors in town, and I feel like what we found is that, like, outside of like a few very small exceptions, they're little islands of like this person edits, this person edits, and that's it. There's like not a ton of collaboration. There's not a ton of shared stuff. So it's always like, okay, well, he does it this way and that, so you have to do things that way. And you're just going to get a deliverable and a file and like hope it's all right.
Yeah.
And one thing we talk about here in the post we do here is just like we do a lot of finishing to where we'll get a project back from editorial and we're just like, what happened? Like, is the file okay? Sure, but it's a mess and we now have to redo a bunch of work to get it so that it can go to color and go out. And so I think so much of this, and I'm pumped about what you're doing, is that it's not just creating great work, it's also educating a lot of people, bringing up people to say like, hey, here are some of the smart ways to do this. Here's like not just the industry standard ways, but like we do this so that it doesn't bite us in the butt here, and here, you know.
Well, to your point, I think we've always, I don't know, this is one of my hopes that we're building is filmmaking is such a collaborative space. Like when you're on set, like you're collaborating with gaffer, DPs, ACs, like all these people. And sometimes post, to your point, is a director or a solo editor in a closet somewhere that's detached from the project, that's kind of trying to build this thing. And I think we've got an interesting workflow where always one or two people are working on the same, or it's usually two people working on the same project, AE or an editor or me. And I think that there can be collaboration within post if you know the technology, if you know the way, and it doesn't have to be so much like, oh, let me go to the edit cave. Like there are other things that we can do. So to your point, like, I'm not gonna play this. Okay, so we talk about like timelines, like as a director, like everybody's like, oh, this is like a beautiful timeline, like, but it's quite messy, to be honest with you. And a real edit like looks like this, where each track has its like deliverables. And that's the one thing that I'm learning as a director within this space is like each track should have its layers. I think what makes professionals, like a professional edit house or a professional post house different from like someone that just does it on the side is the way they handle organization. And I would say that in set in general. Like, I think if you want to take your skill up to the next level, like as a director, plan better, collaborate more, and be organized. So we were talking about this. The worst thing you can say as a director is, oh yeah, we can fix it in post. Because what that tells everybody in set is, I didn't care enough to plan this out to actually execute what my vision was. I just kind of wanted to wing it.
Yep.
But I do, we were also talking about that. I do think that there is freedom to say, hey, let's discover this in the edit. And those are two different things in my mind. Because like you're talking about an unscripted piece, like, hey, here's the flow and the story structure of the way I'm going to build this narrative of this documentary or piece I'm working on. But I do want to note that there's some discovery that needs to happen inside the middle of this story, because there's some conflict that I know exists, but I don't know how they're going to deliver. So that is a different conversation versus like you working on a documentary, or we're just going to figure it out as we go. Like, like you need to have as a director that planning and foresight, because I think that's what makes you a professional versus like just a student filmmaker or a new filmmaker.
Yeah, I think that ties so much into what we were saying earlier about like you have to like trust your crew on set to say like, hey, DP, operator, gaffer, sound, whoever, to say like, I trust you to go in and kill it. Yeah. There's a whole nother level of trusting post and trusting your editors to say like, I trust you to go and kill it. So while still saying, I'm going to give you everything you need, everything I think you need, and then some, to be able to find those moments, to be able to have, you know, the right handles on every moment to where you can lead in, or you can give some space, you can find the pacing to where you're as a director and even as a writer setting up people for success, not just on set, not just in the office, but in post as well. The post, it's not like a cleanup crew that just has to pile it all together.
Yeah.
It's a, so they say like you make a movie 3 times, you make it in you make it in production, and you make it again in post. And so I feel like there's always that people give so much attention and effort to be like, oh, production's the most important one.
Yeah.
But they're all equally important, and the whole thing will fail if you don't give the appropriate attention and time to each one.
I'm all about this term sexy business and unsexy business. Like everybody talks, I know this sounds weird, but everybody talks about NFTs, real estate, and like these hot ticket stuff, like making money in the stock market. That's sexy money. Like that's but no one talks about Coinbase laundry machines and vending machines. Like that's the unsexy side of business. And I feel like, just being candid, like editing sometimes is the unsexy part of what we do, because it's like everybody knows that it should be like something they care about, but no one does, except a few of us.
That's why everybody wants to be a DP and nobody wants to be an editor.
Or a director. Like I love, I want to be a director. I tell you, like I'm not saying that this is not a plug for me to become a full-time editor, because I do love directing, like it is. But I would say that from a career path standpoint, this is the reason why we started the Edit House. Like we saw the opportunity and we kind of jumped on it. And I would say that from a directing perspective, like what is a genre that you feel like you are have access to that no one else does, and that it might not be the sexiest thing, but it pays the bills and allows you to do the thing that you love. Like, so for me, it's music. I love music. I also do a ton of internal communication for big corporations, and I don't mind it. Like, I think me and John have talked about this a couple times. I think the theory that you're going to work on, every piece you work on is going to be this gold and sexy thing that you want to show everybody, I think is a myth.
Yes.
Like, but I do think that those projects that you get reps on, you learn something from, and you take it into the new pieces that you build. And so,
there's maybe 3 or 4 pieces from the first decade of my career that I still would be okay with people seeing.
Yeah.
And most of them from like the last year of that decade. So like I grew up in the faith community as well. Like the reps you can get there, the safe place to fail, to just try new things, try it again. Like I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I think reps matter. The first year I was in filmmaking, I made 500 videos, and they're not all good. Like, and I worked in the faith-based stuff, so I was working nonstop. And I think those reps helped me learn how to be a better organized filmmaker, because if you were trying to figure out something on a post and you had to get 3 videos out that day, it's the last thing you want to do. And so I just would encourage you, stay organized, plan, think, steal ideas, make them your own, like, but also trust the team you have in there.
Absolutely. Man, thank you so much. I think we're going to take some time for some Q&A. We've got time here in the room for some Q&A, and then if you're watching the live stream, we've got a little Q&A box. You can throw some questions in there, and we'll answer those.
Have questions?
Yeah. What do you find yourself doing more so now than when you were?
It's funny, music is one of the things that I never thought I would be doing. Like, I went to school at Middle Tennessee State, which is down the road, and I thought I was going to be this narrative filmmaker. Like, I wanted to make a feature, and I kind of fell into multicam because, I don't know, I had someone challenge me that said I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't do multicam. Like, they were like, hey, you're not good enough to edit this, or you're not good enough to do this. And I was like, hell if I'm not. I'm going to prove you wrong. And like, I just went for it. And I've kind of made a niche for myself. There's a couple of us that do multicam on the scale that we do. And I love making the cinematic version of not the crappy 1990s, 2000s vibe of TV that used to be. So,
amen to that. Ooh, features. Yes.
Okay, I would say I would love to. We were talking about this yesterday. I would love to do. I have no desire to do a feature narrative. I do have a desire to do unscripted television. Like, has anybody watched Welcome to Wrexham, like the Ryan Reynolds soccer thing? If you haven't, it's the first 2 episodes are one of the best edited TV shows right now, and like directed. I would love to direct and like work on documentary unscripted stuff. Like, I just love life. Like, I love people's interactions with life, and I love interacting. And this is the side of me on the Enneagram that's 2, wants to connect with people. Like, I don't have this imagination that's like, let me go make Lord of the Rings or Inception or all things and everything. Like, I just don't have that built in me. But yeah,
That's great. I'll take Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you can take Lord of the Rings. I will watch Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else here? We've got a couple from the live stream. Yeah, Tony.
So sometimes whenever I make videos,
Yeah.
I do just some work and whatnot. Pretty passionate, competitive person.
Yep.
So if it doesn't turn out well, I get down on myself, take it a little personally. Do you, at the level you're at, do you still take things personally in that sense, or can you separate yourself from your life?
I would say all the time. I am getting better at it. I'm 35. We got 2 kids. To be honest, there's just more important things in life now. Like spending time with my children, is huge. So that's part of the reason why I started the Edit House, is to stay at home with family. And a lot of my friends, my mentor and my wife, have challenged me this year of hey, maybe that's not the dream. If you're I'm extremely competitive. I play video games as a 35-year-old adult. I know that's sometimes frowned on, but I love it.
Not at all.
And I'm a kind person usually, but I will cuss out someone on a video game, and this is just who I am. And so to your point, on the career side, if something doesn't, I usually know if a project's awesome or not when I leave, or that there's something special on it. And I can't tell you how many times I've walked away in the fetal position of God, I hope this works out. And I honestly have started in seasons deleting Instagram and certain things that I find myself being competitive of that's the beautiful thing about the filmmaking community, is there's so many people doing so amazing stuff, and you can either look at it as competition or cheering the person on.
Yes.
I have a good friend that has an opportunity in LA that he is going to crush, and I believe it. He's working for one of the biggest companies is out there, and I could either look at his opportunity and be why not me, or hell yeah, go crush it, dude. And I feel like I fight that a lot as a filmmaker, and so it doesn't get easier. I think where I would say is, hey, where's your value at? Where is it about the project? Is it the way it makes you look? Or is it about the people you're building? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an easy solution on it, other than I realize that I do that now, and I go do something physical, I'll go work out or take a walk, or go talk to if you don't have a mentor, and not just a mentor in our space, but someone that you trust that's outside of our space that can give you clarity and be man, do you realize you just need to put to death that thing? And you're yeah, but I don't want to hear that. I was in Charlotte and got to visit my mentor, because I'm from Charlotte, the last 10 years. And he told me I needed to put to death something. And I was shit, you're right, because my wife said it too. But it's just different hearing it from someone you trust. So
Yeah.
And having that space. I know this sounds taboo in our industry, but having a mentor, going to therapy, I truly believe going to counseling is one of the best things you can do as a filmmaker, because
Yes.
it allows you to identify emotions, and if it allows you to identify emotions inside yourself and then able to communicate that to talent. Like that's like, it's been a huge thing for me of like, okay, understanding I'm feeling this way. Oh, if I want to convey this emotion in a narrative or a commercial piece, it's like, hey, let's tap into this. Like, so.
It's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah, it is the whole thing.
We got some questions from the live stream. Question from Bram.
Hey, Bram.
Hey, Bram. In an alternate universe where you did not work in film or music, what would you be doing?
I think I would probably be a counselor. I know that sounds weird, but like I love asking questions and like getting down to the bottom of it. I've also I used to be a repo man, like in a high school, so stealing cars. I'd probably still do that too. So.
Or you could do both, like
yeah, I would counsel
a daytime
people
job
as
and a
I
nighttime
repoed
job.
their cars. That's my answer.
Got a question from Chad. It says, can you go a little deeper on your internal thought process as you're prepping for a live project?
Ooh. Okay, it comes down to the venue. It comes down to like it's so hard. Let's break down John for example. I spent like 2 or 3 weeks watching John Mayer videos, and you're like, I've watched a lot of John Mayer videos in my life. Like it was a reference that I pulled all the time, and Marzolo can tell you that I often was like, hey, where the light is like one of my favorite. But I spent time watching him, and if you go back and watch, he tends to play guitar and his lead licks to his left. And so like analyzing like I was watching crappy like cell phone videos of like, okay, how does he play this song? How does he do that? And when I'm doing a live show, especially with someone I don't know, like I've never worked with John before, or I realized that like, okay, let me figure out his tics. And his tics are, he steps to the left, leans in, and then like steps forward. And so knowing that we needed to make sure that our camera position was in a good space to capture those moments is crucial. So that's the reason why there's a profile shot that is on the side of the stage that you kind of, we wanted a dirty shot, but also knowing that he kind of leans towards the right side, it allowed us to play, we usually wouldn't put the camera there because it's on key side, and it doesn't look as pretty, but we knew that he was going to favor that side. So it's like, okay, let's just go ahead and do it. But then also, if he's leaning towards his left, that means his guitar's to the right. So like just understanding those like dynamics when you're live prepping is just like crucial, especially when you're trying to like capture the moment. That's the way I would break down a live show is like analyze the music you're playing. So great example, it's not a rock show. It's like bluesy, chill. So I'm not gonna have a lot of chaotic handheld. Like if I was shooting Nickelback for say, like I look at this photograph, like rock star, they're coming back if you didn't know. They're all over social media. But like I'd have 4 or 5 dirty cameras in the crowd, like very shaky, moving with Chad. Like that's the kind of vibe I would have. John, I wanted slow movement that really focused on his guitar. So hopefully that helps. And, and the operators matter there too. Like I'm not going to I have operators that I know are really good dolly operators, and so I'll choose those dolly operators I work with to be those dolly people. And then I have my handheld people that I know that like, oh man, these are my 4 or 5 people that I use all the time, and I need at least 1 or 2 of them on every project because it's this like they know my language. They're like. When I tell them to move on, they move on to the things I know that I want. So,
yeah. Last question from Anonymous. Can you share a seeming setback in your career that actually helped you grow, and how'd you learn from it?
I worked at a church for 9 years. And I would say, I don't think that it was a setback, but I think when I left that job, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't, like, there's a lot of stigma within the faith-based community that you can't be a good filmmaker, like, if once you live or work in the industry. And I would say that I thought that that was going to set me back. So I worked on marketing for 6 months to a year with a brand because I was like, I don't know if anybody will ever hire me. And I realized that the things I learned through the church I worked at kind of prepped me along the way. It's the same fundamentals that everybody is learning. It's just I knew how to do it cheaper than most people, or for a season. And I thought it was going to be a setback. Again, that I stopped filming. I didn't make anything from August 2020 to like January 2021, like a good 6 months where I didn't make a video. It was just marketing, like learning how to do that stuff. And then I realized that everybody's trying to make it up as they go. Like anybody that says they have it put together, you're like, you might have an idea, but everybody's figuring it out. Like I've worked on some big stuff this year, and I'm like, everybody that I've met doesn't know what they're doing. They're trying to figure it out. They have instincts and guts, but yeah, I think that I thought that was going to be a setback, and it was mentally for me for a couple of years, and I still think I'm trying to break through a little. I'm in like a interesting season where I feel like I've worked so much in the faith-based community. Like I've done every Christian and gospel artist that you can think of. And I'm slowly making the transition to mainstream artists. And that's been a little slower than I've wanted to, but I think it's allowed me to be with my family and start the edit house. So, yeah.
The transition from faith-based world to everything else is a real thing, and there could probably be a whole support group just for people who've made that jump, 100%. And I'd be in it too.
100%. And I think there's transit, like I think any phase in your life that feels transitional, so like having a kid, marrying, making a leap from DP to director or AC to DP, there is going to be a gap that you want to give up, and I would just say keep pushing through, because that's where you learn, you grow, and yeah, transitions are hard in general, and I don't think anybody tells you that growing up. They're like, oh yeah, it's roses and flowers, but in all reality, transition takes effort.
Absolutely. We got one bonus question from Brett Curry.
Okay.
Hey Brett, what is one piece of gear that you can't live without on set?
Comms. I know that sounds weird.
No, you're so right. Right.
I can shoot with whatever camera is out, but if I don't have good communication, like especially on multicam or even like a big set, like if you don't have good comms, especially on music, it will be the death of you.
You're done.
And I love ear techs like everybody else does, but when there's loud music, it's useless. Ear techs I love
Boleros,
them, but
baby.
they're useless on set.
Yep. Boleros for life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Sweet. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. We are going to wrap it up, but if you want to take a tour of the building, if you want to see ARC, we have the Agito set up over on the shift side. So hang out. We're going to hang out, eat more donuts, drink more coffee. And everybody on the live stream, thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.